Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Goddess Guidance. It is me, your goddess, Hestia Aphrodite, the voice from the divine realm. If you are new to this channel, please be sure to like and subscribe so that I can know and that our growing community can know that you are a part of our tribe, our family, and that you are doing everything that you need to do to ascend in your illuminated self, but also in your shadow self, because that is where wholeness exists. So without further ado, today we are here to talk about more pop culture, spirituality, psychology related things. And the person that I am choosing to focus on today was the former queen of gossip, the former radio queen, Miss Wendy Williams. And if you don't know what's been going on with Wendy Williams recently, she recently had a special, I believe, on Lifetime, which sort of documented her journey in the last few years and everything that she has gone through, her struggles with addiction, her struggles with her family. And honestly, watching what is going on with Wendy Williams right now is actually really heartbreaking. It really, really is. And in it being heartbreaking, there's a lesson in it. There's a lesson in it. It is important lessons for us earth angels, chosen ones, empaths, spiritual beings need to understand so that we don't fall victim to these kinds of hardships. Essentially, it's a cautionary tale. And regarding Wendy Williams from a spiritual perspective, I really see more that this has a lot less to do with her mental health just from a solely psychological perspective. Because remember, my viewpoint as a budding licensed clinical family and marriage therapist is that when someone is going through something mentally, they're also going through something spiritually. There are spiritual ailments that affect a lot of people. There might be angels that live within this person, but there are also demons that live within this person, and they are in complete conflict. They are clashing, and somehow, some way, it's causing the manifestation of said illness. So for Wendy Williams in particular, it really seems like this has a lot to do with dark magic, actually, and a lot of witchcraft. And if you look at Wendy Williams' history and what she did as a profession, which essentially was to talk about the private lives of people, you will piss a lot of people off. And not only was she talking about the highly private aspects of people's lives, she was also doing it in a very successful way. She was doing it in a way that was making her a lot of money, bringing her a lot of fans, to having a lot of listeners tune in. And in that, you create a lot of enemies along the way. And we see that beyond her radio station careers when she moved into television, how people and celebrities really went on to her show to be in conflict with her, They didn't necessarily come vulnerable. They very much so came guarded with this need and want and desire to prove themselves or to adjust their reputation somehow, some way, right? So from a metaphysical, spiritual perspective, which is only for entertainment purposes only, right? I personally believe that with Wendy Williams, she probably has created a lot of enemies along the way. And celebrities and people who have a lot of power and have a lot of money, they are successful, but oftentimes these individuals are very high ranking in whatever spiritual practice, religious practice they might be involved in. One thing I always said was that people who are highly successful and celebrities who are like at the top of their game are probably some of the most spiritual and alchemical people in this world, period. Because there's something that they know how to do. There's some way that they know how to transmute energy. There's a way in which that they are extremely resilient. There is a way in which they constantly are in their creative energy that they are able to be so successful on a grand scale and on a grand stage. So we also have to understand, not only was she pissing people off with the things that she was saying and exposing a lot of people, but she was also doing it to people who have a lot of power and have a lot of influence in this 3D world, but also in other dimensions as well. So when you take a step back and look at it from a psycho-spiritual perspective, you can see how it is possibly possible that what's going on with Wendy Williams is way beyond this concept of illness and way beyond this concept of addiction. You know, someone, somewhere, or multiple people could have casted something upon her that essentially made her lose her mind, especially if she was engaging and indulging in drugs, you know, and alcohol, which is why we as spiritual people, divine beings, empaths, chosen ones have to have complete reign over our vices, because when we don't, that makes us more susceptible to spiritual attacks. That makes us more vulnerable to people's wishes and desires for us. And that is not good, because it makes us very much so weak in the flesh, and being weak in the flesh means that you are super weak in the spiritual, and that cannot happen, especially for us individuals. So another aspect of this whole Wendy Williams thing is that she was very much so in a relationship, in a covenant, in a commitment with a man who really did not love her. Maybe he loved her once upon a time, or maybe he loved the things that she was able to do for him because he wasn't able to do that for himself. And Wendy herself is probably a very high, powerful being. You know, before all these things happened, one can argue that she has a lot of creative energy in her womb. And here comes someone who was able to siphon that energy and utilize that energy and transmute that energy for their own desires. That was not for the highest good of this woman. It was for the highest good of his selfish needs and his selfish desires. So when a woman doesn't have discernment and high self-esteem and the ability to see beyond the obvious and to know what's really going on when people are coming to them for their light, for their star, for their destiny, oftentimes you make covenants and you make pacts and you make vows with the wrong people. Trust me, I know I've done it, and I will never do it again, God willing. But more than likely, Kevin, who knows, her ex-husband, could have been very jealous of her, possibly. And in that jealousy of her queendom, her bossdom, her alpha energy, maybe he aimed to humiliate her. And then now here comes a mistress. And we don't know the mistress's name, Sharina's gifts and her abilities and the things that she was able to do. Obviously, she was very much so envious of Wendy as well. So here are two people, one that you lay in bed with and another that you're also spiritually laying in bed with, whether you know it or you don't. Whether you know it or you don't, who are jealous of you potentially and who covet what you have and who desire to keep you working so they keep themselves well fed off of your wealth, off of your health, and off of your energy. So essentially, from a spiritual perspective, this was a disaster waiting to happen. And from a femininity perspective, right, because I am very much so a feminine leaning woman, I'm very much so balanced in my masculine and feminine energies, but I consider myself a feminine woman, especially when I'm out in the world. That is how I present myself. I am a lover. I am not a fighter. I am a rester. I'm not a doer. I am a receiver. So when a woman is not grounded in her feminine energy, her divine feminine energy, you attract polarity. So as a highly masculine woman, as a doer, Wendy Williams attracted a feminine man, and a man is not at his greatest when he's in his feminine energy completely, because that is what causes resentment. That is what sparks the need to humiliate. That is where that desire comes from, to control. Whether that's controlling in a sense of you need to keep working, so you keep allowing this lifestyle for us, and I'm going to use and harm and manipulate you to make sure you keep doing it, or controlling in the standpoint of domestic violence and all kinds of other abuse, intimate partner violence that happens. So We got to start looking at things from a different perspective, a higher perspective, a 5D perspective. And I'm not saying that every and anything has to do with concepts of spirituality, magic, witchcraft, and things like that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is when you look with your 1, 2, 3 eye, your third eye, and your 2 eyes, and you have this ability to know and to see, you can gain and garnish other perspectives that allow for greater wisdom and greater sight. So we are sending an abundance of prayers to Miss Wendy Williams and her soul that seems to be very much so under attack. You know, I would recommend some form of deep cleansing for her. I mean, she needs to fly to another country and just bathe in the most pristine of ocean water for days to try to get that off of her, you know. But people out here are wicked. They really, really are. And the more successful you become, you know, the more attention that you garnish, the more protection that you need to have. But also, we also have to understand that sometimes you reap what you sow. And gossip is a form of witchcraft, and Wendy was doing it on a national level. So one could also argue that you just reap what you sow, you know. Either way, no matter which perspective you desire to see things from, no one deserves to go out like that. You know, they just really don't, especially in such a public manner. So prayers are up to Wendy. We hope that there is some form of harmonious resolution to this. And if not in this lifetime, maybe in the next. Until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.